Imagine walking into a crowded marketplace, not a modern one, an ancient one. The year is 3000 BC. Thousands of people are packed together. No deodorant, no soap, no running water. The summer heat is brutal, and every single person around you has been sweating and working for weeks without a shower. So what did that actually smell like? For most of human history, smell was not just a personal problem. It was a political tool, a religious weapon, and a social signal. The rich smelled like gods, the poor smelled like evidence, and somewhere between those two worlds, humanity invented one of the most powerful technologies ever created, something that would change religion, medicine, war, and romance forever. This is the weird, wild, and surprisingly dark history of perfume. The oldest known perfume factory was discovered in Cyprus in 2003. It dates back roughly 4,000 years, around 2000 BC. Archaeologists found copper stills, mixing bowls, and perfume bottles with residue still inside. The factory was producing at least 14 different fragrances. Industrial perfume production was happening before the Roman Empire even existed. The word perfume itself comes from the Latin phrase perfumum, which means through smoke. The earliest perfumes were not worn on the body at all, they were burned. Ancient Mesopotamians and Egyptians used fragrant smoke as a way to communicate with their gods. Burning cedar, myrrh, and frankincense was not about smelling nice, it was about being heard by the divine. The first perfume was not a luxury product, it was a prayer. In ancient Egypt around 1500 BC, pharaohs were buried with small jars of perfumed oils. Archaeologists found intact alabaster containers inside Egyptian tombs that still faintly smelled of frankincense thousands of years later. But common workers were actually paid partly in scented oil rations. If you ran out of oil, you could not trade, could not pray properly, and could not be buried with dignity. Smell was literally money. In ancient Greece, things shifted. The Greeks began applying perfume directly to the body, with different oils for different body parts. They believed rubbing thyme oil on the arms created strength, mint on the chest improved breathing. Athens had an entire market section just for perfume sellers. But only free citizens could afford the best imports. Slaves and laborers used cheap local herbs. The scent divide between classes was obvious and intentional. Rome took this class divide to an extreme. Emperor Nero reportedly spent the equivalent of millions of modern dollars on perfume for a single banquet. Petals soaked in rosewater would rain down from the ceiling onto guests. Meanwhile, the average Roman worker smelled of fish sauce and street dust. After Rome collapsed came the medieval period in Europe, roughly 500 to 1400 AD. With the fall of Rome, much of the perfume knowledge in Europe disappeared. The church declared certain fragrances sinful. People stuffed dried herbs into small bags worn around their necks, called pomanders. This is usually where people picture unwashed peasants wallowing in filth, but that image is mostly wrong. Medieval people bathed regularly. Public bathhouses were common across Europe well into the 1300s. The idea that they never cleaned themselves was largely invented by Victorian writers a few centuries later who needed medieval people to seem barbaric so their own era looked civilized by comparison. The myth was propaganda. Perfume in the Middle Ages was not hiding filth, it was doing something more desperate than that. The darkest chapter in perfume history arrived in the 14th century with the Black Death. Between 1347 and 1351, bubonic plague killed roughly 25 million people across Europe. Nearly one-third of the entire continent's population wiped out in 4 years. Doctors at the time genuinely believed bad smells caused the disease. They called it miasma theory. The idea was simple and completely wrong. Bad air caused illness, so if you replaced the bad smell with a good smell, you could survive. Doctors stuffed the beaks of their iconic plague masks with dried flowers, herbs, and spices. Camphor, rose petals, and cloves were packed in tight.
people burned incense constantly. The wealthy doused themselves in expensive perfumes, believing it was medicine. None of it worked. The plague kept spreading. They were doing their best with the wrong information. Scent was all they had. The real cause, bacteria spread by fleas on rats, would not be understood for another 5 centuries. The failure of miasma theory raised a painful question. If smell could not cure disease, what exactly was it good for? The answer came not from Europe, but from Central Asia, and from a man most people have never heard of. His name was Ibn Sina. Born in 980 AD in what is now Uzbekistan, he was a Persian physician and scientist, sometimes called the father of early modern medicine. Around the year 1000 AD, Ibn Sina developed a process called steam distillation. This technique used steam to extract essential oils from plants with far greater purity than anything done before. He documented it in a massive medical encyclopedia describing over 800 substances and their properties. His distillation process made it possible to create alcohol-based perfumes, the same basic technology behind every perfume bottle on store shelves today. A scientist working over 1,000 years ago essentially invented modern perfumery. But in medieval Europe, his work was heavily borrowed without credit. European scholars translated his texts, used his methods, and dropped his name. The techniques were claimed as European innovations. Ibn Sina died in 1037 AD, worn out from years of political exile and imprisonment. He never received proper credit in the Western world. Today, most people can name a dozen European inventors, but have never heard of the man whose method made the entire global fragrance industry possible. For most of history, quality perfume was handmade, expensive, and available only to the elite. That changed in the 19th century with synthetic chemistry. In 1868, English chemist William Henry Perkin helped pioneer the synthesis of coumarin, a compound that smells like fresh-cut grass and vanilla. It was one of the first synthetic fragrance ingredients ever created. Suddenly, perfumers didn't need rare flowers from distant regions. They could recreate natural scents in a laboratory at a fraction of the cost. By the early 1900s, the price of quality perfume had dropped by nearly 80% compared to handmade botanical formulas. In 1921, Coco Chanel released Chanel No. 5, the first major commercial perfume to use synthetic ingredients heavily. It was designed specifically for independent modern women. For the first time, a woman's perfume became a statement of identity, not just a marker of wealth. Working-class women who could never afford handcrafted oils could now purchase something beautiful in a small bottle. Scent stopped being just for kings and started being for everyone. Perfume was never really about smelling good. From the very beginning, it was about reaching for something beyond ordinary life. Ancient people burned sacred smoke trying to touch their gods. Sick people in medieval Europe buried their fear inside handfuls of dried flowers. A Persian scientist spent his lifetime trying to bottle a scent that would outlast everything. And the next time a specific smell pulls a memory out of nowhere, a place, a person, something you thought you'd forgotten, that reaction is not random. It is 4,000 years of human history firing inside your brain in less than a second.